Good afternoon. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Student Affairs Live, the weekly web show dedicated to student affairs professionals in higher education. We broadcast on the Higher Ed Live network and is a product of ED Universe Media. Tune in to Student Affairs Live every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as Admissions Live, the weekly web show for admissions professionals, hosted by Ashley Budd on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. by visiting higheredlive.com/live. As always, thank you to Campus Labs for sponsoring Student Affairs Live. The Campus Labs Student Affairs Suite from Hire One connects data related to all aspects of student life, provides insight to student engagement experiences, and reveals the direct connection between student affairs programming and student learning, all in support of individual student success. Visit hireone.com/campuslabs to learn how their solution provides you the evidence you need to show that student affairs brings students' life inside and outside the classroom together to make a comprehensive student experience. My name is Ed Cabellin, and I am your guest host for a very exciting episode of Student Affairs Live. Just some housekeeping. Just if you are new to the show, we are tweeting and having a great back channel conversation on #SALive, so please join us there. And again, I'm Ed Cabellin. I'm director of the Campus Center at Bridgewater State, broadcasting to you live from lovely southeastern Massachusetts, where today the temperature is right around 30 degrees. We've got our first cold feeling temperature for the season, and definitely a sunny, beautiful day here. Hoping it's a great day where you are. Today's show is focusing on a topic that I have become very familiar with, which is pursuing the doctoral degree while working as a student affairs professional. And we have a great panel joining us today. So let me first introduce our panel. And you'll have to excuse me as I multitask here. Josie Alquist from California Lutheran University. Jeff Jackson from the University of Texas Health Science Center in San Antonio. And Nikki Rudolph from Michigan State University's Residential College in the Arts and Humanities. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing today?
Great.
It's also our first day of winter here, so really well.
Yeah, in Texas and in California, it's just lovely there today. So
it is 50, which is quite cold here.
50 in Texas.
Yes.
Y'all have your sweaters out?
Yeah, this is my winter wear. I have a fleece somewhere.
Somewhere. Okay.
He's still in flip-flops, but that's okay.
So if I could have each of you just introduce yourselves real quick and share your path to higher education and student affairs, and then why you decided to pursue your terminal degree. We'll start with Jeff today. So Jeff, why don't you kick us off?
I went to school. I was a religious education major in undergrad, and specifically youth ministry, and after a few lock-ins decided I didn't want to do that anymore. And I was very fortunate to work in my dean's office doing a lot of orientation planning and orientation advisor, and got really interested in higher ed that way. And I didn't know there was a traditional path of this whole grad assistantship and that kind of stuff. So I basically moved to Austin because I wanted to live there, and I got a really lower-end job at UT, then eventually became an academic advisor, then started working towards my master's degree part-time, and I finished that about 10 years ago. Got more into student organization, student leadership programming. When I finished my master's degree, some people went straight through their doctorate, and I just really had no desire for that. I didn't want to get a doctorate until I knew professionally I had to have one. The thought of getting one seemed very overwhelming. As a first-generation college student, the fact of going to get a master's degree was a huge thing for me to do. So I thought I kind of reached my pinnacle. Then 12 years later, I got to the point in my career where if I didn't get a doctorate degree, like I'm kind of stuck. I'm kind of, haven't reached 40 yet at the time, and it was kind of ceilinged out if I didn't get that. So that was my main point of going back to get a doctorate degree, was for a kind of professional advancement. So searched around for a little bit, found a program, found several, and actually had a very long process of what to get a degree in. Should it be higher education? Should it be something more technology-based? Should it be something more information, school of information? So I did that for a while and then ended up with this program. Here I am.
Great. Thanks for sharing. Josie, you're up.
Sure. So I think I've always known that I wanted to get my doctorate. I think it scares my husband because I could be a student the rest of my life. But my path in student affairs started obviously super involved college student in South Dakota, and just kind of flew into a master's program from there at Arizona. Put in my time in residence life, which brought me out to Los Angeles. And honestly, it was really when I started to plan my wedding that I started to apply for doctoral programs. I was convinced not to do that my first year of marriage. So I ended up waiting a few years, and now I'm a second-year student at Cal Lutheran, and I'm just really loving it. I'm finding the more I pay attention to my love to be in the classroom, the more I'm looking into the faculty and research roles within higher education.
Great. Thanks, Josie. Nikki, you're up.
Similar to both Jeff and Josie, definitely was bitten by the student affairs bug through undergrad, but I was secondary education and I thought I was going to go into deaf education. So I took some time after undergrad before my master's degree to really decide, do I want to pursue a master's in deaf education or do I want to go into student affairs, and became a hall director, did the thing, came to Michigan State to start my master's program, and I fell in love with the faculty. My husband and I went back and forth. He did his master's straight out of undergrad, then I did my master's, and so it was kind of my turn to start the PhD because we both knew that was in the cards. Always knew that it was just something I wanted to do, and because I loved the faculty so much for my master's program, they were a good mix of practitioners as well as scholars, and a good mix of people who really respected having families and being a student, because I knew I was going to start my family soon after starting the doctoral program, and so it became a good fit for me. Obviously, I'm here at Michigan State, so I didn't have to go anywhere to get a great program, which I was very fortunate for, but it was also a big decision because my institution doesn't pay for my doctoral education. So did I really want this program, and was this something that I wanted to do? So I have not regretted it at all. I just finished, so I get to say that I didn't regret it at all because I'm done. And I think it was a great fit for me because of the people that were here, and I knew the program was right for me.
So a lot of the three of you, I've just really admired watching from afar as you start talking. You talked about your doctoral programs, and it's no secret why you're on the show today is because of your varying experiences of being finished, being in the middle, being sort of starting. And a lot of the questions I've been getting in terms of pursuing a doctoral degree really have to do with, well, is it PhD? Should I go do a PhD program or should I do an EDD program? Which are the two major programs that I think most folks in student affairs anyway pursue. The educational doctorate, and then the traditional PhD, which many of us have seen our colleagues get. So can each of you talk a little bit about why you chose the type of degree you're pursuing and sort of its impact in your future careers? And we'll go backwards this time, start with Nikki.
Well, truthfully, it wasn't really a question for me. We don't have an EDD program here at Michigan State, so PhD, if I wanted to do a doctoral program here, it was going to be the PhD. I think in my head I always knew it was going to be the PhD because I was very fascinated at really seeing the whole research process through. I didn't look much into EDD programs, so I wasn't as knowledgeable on that to begin with. I just knew that the PhD fit me, so I kind of stuck with that.
Great. Josie?
When I first started to look at programs, I was working like many of our colleagues and ourselves, 60-hour work weeks, and I really planned on staying on the practitioner administrator side, so I was okay looking at both PhD and EDD programs. Now that I've done, the process of realizing that I want to go the faculty route, I do have a little regret that I'm not in a PhD program, but what I'm able to get from my smaller program is constant access with my faculty and be able to do research with them, whereas maybe at a bigger school, a PhD program, I might not have that. But honestly, what I hear the most and where I've been able to settle to feel better about my program and my goals, it's really whatever you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So you could still be graduating with a PhD, but maybe not publish yet because you just didn't have the resources available based on where the faculty were with their own priorities. So it makes me feel a little bit better in that direction that I have the support I need.
Great, thanks. Jeff?
Yeah, so I never understood kind of some built-in elitism that we've made within our either master's programs on like, did you go to this, not to name a campus, but this school, this program, and it's almost like we're all broke because none of us makes enough money, so we have to find other reasons to kind of be snobbish or elitism or something like that. So we tried to decipher, kind of look at what degree did you get and where did you get it and those kinds of things. So I didn't put, I'm in an EDD program, but that was more by default than anything else. I didn't seek out to do an EDD program. What was important for me was how fast I could go through a program, and therefore the program I found happened to be an EDD program, and it's going to let me progress through the program at the way it's set up with the integrated dissertation process faster than any other EDD program or PhD program I could do. So I don't really plan to be faculty, at least not full-time. I wouldn't mind adjuncting, but I don't plan to do that. I do plan to be, do some research as a practitioner, because I think that's important for us to do. But the fact that I would get more the research on the PhD side wasn't that big of a draw for me. So.
And I think for me, when I looked at my EDD program, the thing that sold me on the Johnson & Wales program is that they really, were focusing on the higher ed administrator and the research practitioner side, and that the EDD, for them, as they, award those degrees, we're really planning for the higher education leaders of the future. And that's really where I saw myself. And so it fit what I was looking for. But I mean, in terms of value, I think arguments can be made for both sides of getting a PhD versus an EDD. And like Jeff, at the end of the day, I know I wanted a program that I could get done fairly quickly in 3 years, 3.5, 4 years, and be done. Because I just see too many of my colleagues also just, they're taking a long time, and I know I don't have those resources, so that's the motivation for me to get it done, so that I'm not spending as much as maybe some of my other colleagues who either are being subsidized by their institution, which I'm not for sure. So a lot of folks, if you're looking out for that answer, PhD versus EDD, I think it's going to be really at the end what you want from your professional career after. And folks will give you different answers. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think it's got to fit and feel right for you. So we're getting questions from the Twitters. That's awesome. So by the way, if you want to have a question for this esteemed panel, send us a question, #SALive. And the first question we have has come in. Let me just make sure I have that one right. This is a question from Megan Marks. Megan, thanks for watching. We appreciate you tuning in. And I think this is going to, I'm going to start with Josie, because this is a social media question. So do you know research regarding college student use of social media? I may have some ideas too, but I'm going to leave it up to Josie and Jeff too, because I know Jeff's looking at. I think Jeff's looking at some of that as well. But we'll go through all of us. So, Josie, let's start with you. Social media, college student use of social media research. Yeah.
Well, what's exciting about that topic is that basically every month new research is coming out. So it's also very exciting as someone that studies that. It's also a little overwhelming because I'm in my lit review right now, and the challenge is to be able to pull all it together until you reach saturation, and it feels like I may never get to that point. But again, it is really exciting. There are some heavy researchers out there that's definitely their theme, and so I would encourage finding those researchers that are continually pumping out new research, especially if you like the types of research questions or the methodology that they follow. So start to look for that. There's different stats that you can look at. Obviously, all students are on social media. What's frustrating is that usually because the large publications, it takes at least a year to get out. We're not seeing the new trends like Instagram or Vine. You can see research on MySpace and Facebook, but those are quickly, moving away. And I think what the challenge is going to be for publications is moving all to online, or maybe to have both printed and online versions, so they can just keep up with the influx. Because in a doctoral program, you really can't cite a blog post or other sources that aren't peer-reviewed and printed. So that can get a little frustrating when you're trying to be, really on the cutting edge and emerging. So that's kind of a big picture without, throwing a whole bunch of stats at you, which I could go about all day on.
Awesome, thanks, Josie. Jeff, thoughts on that?
I'm actually not doing that as my research topic, and because I'm not doing that, like Josie said, it is really hard to keep up in that area. So I think you have more knowledge in that than I do.
Okay, Nikki, any thoughts on social media research or things that you might have seen that's been useful for you?
Well, obviously I'm partial to some Michigan State researchers, but there are some great folks here in the College of Ed and in the College of Communication Arts and Sciences who are doing some cool stuff, and so I love reading what they're working on, but I also get to call them up and have coffee with them, so there's an advantage there. And you know that I will always be a Ray Hunko fangirl. He does great work, and I think that he's always been at the top of it. So I love reading their work, even though it's not my research interest, because I think it makes me a better professional to hear it. So I look forward to seeing what you come up with, Ed, and Josie, what you all come up with, because I love hearing that work that's out there. So keep writing.
Yeah, Josie won't do this, but so I'm going to do it for her. Josie's latest blog post is actually a goldmine of social media research and citations, and so I would highly recommend, and we'll put that up on the Higher Ed Live Twitters in a minute. But Ray Hunko definitely is someone who's been doing seminal research in social media and student engagement for a long time. Greg Heiberger is another one, as well as Velistano. How do you pronounce that, Josie?
That's a very good question. I don't know. He is on Twitter.
Yes.
So
George, is his first name George?
That seems right.
Yeah, George Velicianos, I think it is. But Josie just did a recent post, which is really great. And there's been, if you were to Google in scholar.google.com, literature review, social media, higher education, there's great research in there. Folks have done lit reviews that you might want to go through. It really depends on why you want that research too. I think it's important to understand, are you looking to find, social media for student engagement? Are you looking to find, evidence that talks about increasing grades or use in the classroom or psychosocial impacts of social media? This is a lot. So the question matters in what you're trying to understand about social media and student affairs. So just as a point of interest, because it's definitely stuff I'm knee-deep in as well. So all right, so let's talk a little bit about your program, the one you're in right now, and what you've enjoyed most and what you found most challenging so far. We will start with Jeff this time.
My program, I'm at the University of Mary Hardin Baylor. It's a Doctorate of Education and Leadership, and we do have some classes with the K through 12 people, and then we have some classes that are more specific to higher education. So surprisingly, I've really enjoyed the interacting with the K through 12 people. I don't know why that's surprising, but it's amazing what I've learned, because we always blame them for everything. Like the reason we have problems on our campus because it's their fault, right? So, but it's nice to learn about kind of the issues and the struggles they have and what they're up against with funding and education reforms and all the standardized testing they have to deal with, and how that we will see some influences of that on our campus also. And we don't have a ton of classes together, but we have some together. But and I think also for me is, I had over a 10-year gap between master's and doctorate, and so I had a lot of apprehension and stress and nervousness and self-loathing on could I even do the work. APA had changed twice since I was in school last, and so it was a lot to learn. I haven't done any professional academic writing in a long time, and then when I did it, I don't even know how good it was then. And so I just felt that there was a lot to learn, and surprisingly, I realized I actually enjoy writing. And so that's probably a lot of it. The people are great. My classmates are great. My professors and faculty are great. So there's all that there too. But I never thought I would enjoy writing.
Great. Nikki.
Sorry, I wasn't very fast with the unmute. I'm at Michigan State University, and my program is a PhD program in higher adult and lifelong education. And I think the piece for me that was the most rewarding was the fact that it was a cohort model program. There were 20 of us who came in together. Of my cohort, I think at the time only 3 were doing the PhD full-time. The rest of us were all working full-time. And those people got me through my comps. Those people read drafts of my dissertation. They're still great colleagues now, and so I truly valued that. I had it in my undergrad or my master's program in Student Affairs Administration as well, but it was phenomenal to have. It was also phenomenal from the perspective that there were people who did alumni and development. There were people who did business within higher education. There were people who were doing this. They had already done a JD, and they were legal counsels, and they were doing a PhD program. There were folks who were doing the faculty route. So having that mix and really using it. And so our program was built so that your first year, your 2 classes are stacked. So on Wednesday night from 3 to 6, you have 1 class. You have a break from 6 to 7. The second class is from 7 to 10. And so we called 6 to 7 time. That was family dinner time, and we brought our sack lunch, and we went over to the Union area, and we had dinner together. And it was phenomenal to just have that time with other people who were in the program, because when you hit those moments, I mean, we all kind of finished at different times or whatever, but when you hit those moments that you're like, oh my gosh, am I going to get through this, or I really can't believe I'm doing this. It was really nice to have cheerleaders on your side, and I loved that cohort model. So the challenges are, I had to be a different kind of student. I think that for me, it's that imposter syndrome of why am I here? I don't think that I'm supposed to be in this PhD program, and it's a different kind of writing than I did for my master's program, especially at the end when you're actually working on the dissertation. I just had this conversation with someone else who's getting ready to defend and trying to cheer her on and say, I know you've never written like this before. You're never going to write like this again. This is just this one document. So it was definitely a different kind of being a student. So that was a challenge for me.
Josie.
So like I'd mentioned when I first entered my doctoral program at California Lutheran University, I was working full-time. I was working almost every night, so I couldn't commit to a program that required us to give 1 or 2 nights during the week. So I found a program that we met 1 weekend a month, so all day Friday, all day Saturday, and then the rest was online. So it's a 60-40 model, so it really worked for me at the time. Since January, I grabbed the opportunity to be able to just go to school for full-time as well as take a graduate assistantship. And so now I have even more flexibility. I work and go to school from home. So that really has allowed me to, explore my research interests and just push my my program a little bit further. The program is at 2 cohorts. That's both higher ed and K-12. Our research classes we take together, and then our specific, like higher ed classes we would take on our own. Like Jeff, at first when I found out we would take classes with K-12, I was a little, maybe not as excited about it, but they are some of my favorite people in the world now, and so I'm really happy, and I've learned a lot from them. And I'll graduate in 3 years. It's definitely not a freight train. It's a very soft sled ride down a good length hill. But we will all graduate together and really feel supportive there. Some of the challenges, there has been some turnover in faculty, which has caused some hiccups as far as the diversity of faculty that I've been able to take. But the faculty that I do have, I mentioned earlier, are just, they're people that'll be in my life forever and are extremely supportive. And I think now as a full-time doctoral student, my personal challenge is just knowing when's enough and not to be extremely hard on myself. Obviously putting in the work and doing good work, but knowing that it doesn't have to be mind-blowing just because I don't have a full-time job. So I'm working on that.
All fantastic viewpoints. Thank you. More questions from the Twitters. from the interwebs. Lisa Endersby, hello friend, thanks for tuning in. Question for all of you. Any thoughts on how to choose a dissertation research topic? I'm still swirling around at the top of the funnel. And this is before Lisa even gets into a program, so let's make sure we clarify this. So thoughts about your process for choosing a dissertation topic. When did you know? And you know, that, I guess that process, I think for some, they think about that, you know, prior to admission, and I know I did. So thoughts on that? Let's start with Josie first.
Sorry, you got me off guard. It is a question that, at least in my program, we were asked in our interviews, so I think it's a really great thing to start thinking about now. I'm actually right on that cusp of needing to declare my dissertation after the holidays, so I'm definitely in the heat of this debate. I definitely know I'm doing social media in higher education, so really I'm trying to narrow down my target audience and my methodology, and obviously research questions. So to aid me in that, I've come up with a little plan for December. It's called the 12 Days of Christmas, 12 Days of Dissertation. So I'm going to call up 12 individuals, and just to be able to tell them my ideas, get feedback. Everyone you talk to is going to have a different opinion. So it can be a little overwhelming or frustrating, especially if you're leaning towards one of those more than the other. But so what I hope to do is just gather all those up and hopefully have a really great feast at my Christmas, and to be able to move into the new year with a topic. So just use your resources that you have, vet some of those ideas, look in the research to see if it already exists. Because if you're looking to hopefully expand on a research hole in the research, that's always ideal, and then just kind of always keep an open mind from there.
Nikki.
I don't know when I think that I probably knew what I wanted to research before I started my PhD. I think that there are questions that are itching your brain that naturally propel you towards the doctoral program. Whether they come to fruition as a full-blown project is completely different, but I think that I always knew I wanted to look at organizational change issues. I knew I always wanted to look at presidential leadership issues, and I didn't know how that was all going to come together, but it did. And it was only adding sustainability at the very end when I really needed to narrow it down and say, what kind of change process do I want to examine, that it all just felt like it fit together for me. So I think that there's something to be said about, it's kind of a gut check. I always liken it to, if you've ever done shopping for a home, that every once in a while you walk in and you just know this is the house you're supposed to be in. And I think that there's something about research. If there are plenty of times I've come up with questions, I'm like, oh, that'd be a really good dissertation, or oh, that'd be really cool for someone to examine. But it's always someone else. The one question that I kept coming back to, that kept itching at me, I think I just knew it's always been with me, and so I just kind of stuck with it.
Great, thank you. Jeff.
Sorry, I forgot the unmute thing. I went in, so in my program, because we had the integrated dissertation process, they really want you to have, from like day one in class, is like, you know, generally what are you interested in researching, and mine was around professional development and technology, specifically social media. Over a very quick iteration over the course of a semester, I really changed to looking at the general competencies of professionals. I feel like I didn't have the context of which to do that from, so I wanted to kind of start out with like, where are we as a profession and preparing people as professionals. And so so mine changed a lot, but it changed really rapidly. And I think a few things to think about is one, hopefully this is not the last time you're going to research. So you're learning a process which you can use as a professional to be a practitioner or faculty or whatever you want to do, and keep doing research. So so there's that. And two, don't pick something that's so hard that you're going to spend 7 years to do your dissertation. I eventually, it was kind of like, okay, what can I get done in the short amount of time, that I still think I'm contributing something to a conversation. I'm still contributing something to the general research pool. And so I had a lot of things I wanted to research, and they weren't even necessarily topics that were related to each other. And so I have to keep in mind that I still have the rest of my career to continue on and do that research. And this is teaching me the process of which to go about and do that. So overall, I'm pretty happy. So I'm in my second year. I'm almost halfway done mark, and I pretty much have my lit review finished, or no, drafted, because there's a big difference. So I pretty much have my lit review drafted. I have a draft of my chapter 3 methods part of it, and so I'm gonna be able to propose this spring and start collecting data fairly soon. So, but I've done a lot of that on my own outside of my classwork, just so I can crank through this as I can. So it's not an easy process, but it's a worthwhile process, and it's teaching me a lot as a professional that I wouldn't have done otherwise.
I just want to reiterate something that Jeff just said, because I think it's important to hear again. Your dissertation, whatever research you're doing, is not your research agenda for the rest of your life. It might be, but it doesn't have to be. My husband and I both worked full-time, and he was doing his dissertation while I was doing my dissertation, and there were times where he just wanted to scream at it and yell at it, and we would remind each other, this is not your life, this is one paper, take a breath, you know, you don't have to feel like you put everything into this one document. There will be a life after the dissertation, and it's important to remember that.
Great point. Absolutely. I mean, certainly the idea, and I've heard this in my program and perhaps in yours as well, that the hope is that you don't stop researching, right? That the idea, this exercise, while obviously for the 3 letters is important, the idea is that if we're really talking about lifelong learning and contributing to the academy in a holistic long-term method, then perhaps some of the questions that you came across during your process you might want to continue later, and that's where you see folks who've earned their degree and then maybe partner up with other researchers doing similar things. Maybe you do something together. And so, absolutely, I concur with everything that you folks have said.
And Ed, back to the original or an early question about EDD versus PhD, and I know there's some questions on about through the stream about, is it okay to get a degree outside of higher ed if you want to stay in higher ed? I think the body of your work is more to say than what type of degree you have. And I know for some people that's going to matter. I'm never going to be able to be a faculty on some campuses because I'm getting an EDD. But if I have a really good body of research, for some people it's not going to really matter because I've contributed and published and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of things that we worry about for a decent good reason that we shouldn't really worry about, because really what we do and who we are and what we put out there as professionals is going to say more degrees from or what kind of degree it is.
Absolutely. Great points. Thank you. Question from the Twitters from Amanda Marble. Amanda, thanks for tuning in. She would love to hear advice from you all about striking work-life balance. We always come back to that, don't we? And would love to hear some personal strategies. And I think each of you will have some different perspectives. So we'll start with Jeff this time.
Repeat the question, because I was reading other questions on the Twitter. But you're muted. I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. So, so the question is, what would you do? How do you strike work-life balance in your program? We'd love to hear some personal strategies.
I'm more organized now than any point in my life because I have to be. I went back and read Getting Things Done over the last holidays just to kind of help do this. So. I don't know if I do it well, but I probably do it now as well as any time. And I think saying work-life balance is always hard because the life is not really, like, work is kind of compartmentalized, right? It's 8 to 5-ish, 8 to 7-ish, or 8 to whatever it is that you have, or maybe before 8. But there's this kind of like time that work starts and time that work stops, and may vary in higher ed and student affairs. But life is like, I have family, and we have our like church community, and I have kids that have these activities to go to, and like the life part is not compartmentalized. That's like all over the place. So it's not like a scale. It's like a scale of like 15 things on there. You're trying to balance around, and wanting to be like a good dad and husband and employee is really stressful. And not that I don't want to be it. It's not that I don't strive to be a good student, but I'd much rather be a good dad than a good student. So overall, it's really hard. So you have to go in knowing it's hard to do that. You have to have a plan of when you're going to do things. So for me, when I go home, I don't study until after dinner, after spending a couple hours with the family. I can get the kids to sleep, and then I have a couple lines or up until I go to bed. I study a lot on Saturdays, but Sundays I don't do anything. That's like just family days. So I've set these parameters in my own life about when I have like studying allowances to do, and make sure I'm spending time with my son and my daughter and family. And I have small children. My son is now 3, and my daughter's almost 1, and so I really want to spend a lot of time with them. So I think putting up those kind of boundaries in your life, and then sacrificing the things that aren't important, like stop watching Dancing with the Stars, right? Because that's really not going to be that productive in the grand scheme of your life, unless that's like a really good stress reliever for me, right? But like I don't watch television. I have no idea what's happening in the world. I watch the Longhorns play football on Saturdays for like 3 hours, and that's still on my computer on my lap. That's the only time I watch TV. Unless I watch Curious George at 7 o'clock in the morning with my son. But besides that, like, the TV is like not even on. So, figure out the things in your life that aren't that important. Figure out the things that are important. Just prioritize.
Thank you. Josie.
So when the first year and a half of my program, when I was working full-time, a few strategies that worked for me, because I would work extremely long days. I was doing programming and student management, is just putting one thing per day to get checked off the list. So I was always at least inching toward goals and completions for projects. So if it was just to get one chapter read, or find 5 resources that I'm then going to cite later in a paper that weekend, for me as an achiever and a doer, that at least relieved the stress level that I would put myself on. And now, honestly, it's like I had mentioned, going to school and working full-time from home, it's setting limits. And so I got a dog to get myself outside of my house more, because I found like I was just inside a lot, which is not me. That's not the only reason I got a dog. But I also make sure that I connect with colleagues more, just for professional development, but also for support. So Twitter has been really great for that. And then I put out my blogs, and especially like my method that I'm going to use in December to reach out to individuals to just vet my dissertation topic. You do have to make sure that you're strategic in connecting with people when you have goals like that. I think going back to just those that are looking at doctoral programs, that you've always heard the sayings like there's never going to be a good time and things like that. Just also make sure you're going for the right reasons. It's not just for the title or for the esteem. That really, I think going and committing yourself to a doctoral program is, you're looking to kind of, I felt like, okay, I was committing that this is going to be my life work in this field. It may lead you to other paths within education, maybe into nonprofit or whatnot, but if you're just looking like me as an achiever to get that I'm Dr. Josie Alquist, it's going to burn out pretty quickly. There's a lot of research right now of retaining doctoral students in both PhD and ED programs, that we're losing students in programs, and part of it might be that they go in for the wrong reasons. So just make sure that you've kind of vetted that with yourself, that's the reasons you're going in for, and definitely build a support team around you that are understanding and supportive through the process.
Great, thank you. Nikki.
Oh, work-life balance. Well, first off, I do have to do a nod to a colleague of mine here at Michigan State who actually did her dissertation on work-life balance issues among student affairs professionals, and I have to admire how she rephrased it, that it's a work-life negotiation. There's no balance, there's no, happy equilibrium that we all achieve. It's a constant role negotiation. I think that was definitely true through mine. I had 2 maternity leaves in the middle of my PhD. My husband and I, like I mentioned, were both working full-time and doing our PhD, and he actually started after me. And he did the hem and the haw, and should I start and should I not? And I said, it's either now or when the girls are out of high school. Choose. It's not, our life isn't going to get less chaotic, so it's either, go ahead and pick up the sword or not. We're kind of in this. And I think it really is a matter of figuring out what works for you as a student. I think Josie talked about kind of what she needed to do every day as far as checking off things off the list, and Jeff talked about how he schedules his Saturdays and his Sundays and things like that. And I think it's important for you to figure out what works for you as a student, because it's a different kind of being a student. My husband did his bachelor's and his master's straight through. I was not physically in the same location as he was. He was a full-time student, and when he got to the doctoral program, I had to teach him how to skim. Let me introduce you on how you get through articles quickly. So I think you have to figure those pieces out. For us, it was about scheduling. I'm a morning person, always have been, so I would get up and study from 4:30 until 6 o'clock before my girls woke up, and then go about my day, and then maybe get some different kind of tasky stuff done at night when I knew I was going to be less on top of it. I knew I needed to be bright and early as far as reading and comprehending and writing, but the other stuff, the edit a paragraph, whatever, could be done in the evening. I think the other piece that helped me out is I actually used my vacation days at my job to take a day and be a PhD student on a pretty regular basis. I would schedule them. I would say, okay, I'm full-blown into writing my proposal. I need to take every Friday off for this month, and so I had a very supportive supervisor who helped me do that. But it also, like Josie mentioned, you have to be easy on yourself. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be great. I would love to say that I was, an awesome mom when both of my girls were newborns, but there are times when instead of Goodnight Moon, they got Review of Higher Education, and they really didn't care. So I think you have to go easy on yourself and realize that it is a constant negotiation, but you have to figure out, it's a trial and error, and you got to figure out what works for you.
Nikki, that probably helped them go to sleep better than Goodnight Moon.
Probably.
Oh, that's so good.
I just wanted to add that also I've never drank a cup of coffee until last year, and now I became a regular coffee drinker, and so that has helped. And I still don't like the taste. Coffee is like medicine. Like, I don't like the taste of it, but I like the effects of it, right? So it's I've had to do that, sadly. I'm becoming an addict with that, just so I can have energy. And it's not always to stay awake. It's to wake up the next morning to go to work is when it's more important. But also things like using Zotero has saved hours on creating a bibliography. And having a good file system where all of my articles are in Dropbox on this is what's been cited, this is what needs to be reviewed, this is not even usable or use it for somewhere else in the section. Like, having those, like, I'm not an overly organized person. I probably sound like I am because I'm talking about file systems and Zotero stuff and organizing my weekend. Like, that's not me normally. But I had to become that to be like most effective. But so having those things in place, like before you get in the middle of researching your lit review, helps a lot.
Absolutely. All, again, fantastic feedback. I want to say, just to add to the conversation, that well, first of all, welcome to the Caffeine Club, Coffee Club. Jeff, welcome. It's nice to have you. And I also was sort of back and forth on coffee because I tried to kick it last year, and I'm full-blown back now and not turning back because I can't do it without it. But I like your medicine analogy. That's actually really good. But certainly the organization piece, you become well aware of the intricacies of time and how you can find time to fit in. I mean, between digital content that I have either on my, whether it's in Amazon, because I'm reading books that way, or using Dropbox to quickly during soccer practice read a quick article while they're doing their practice. You find ways to not monopolize, but manipulate time in your favor, because in the past you'd think, well, I have no time, or I'm so busy. And when you really do an analysis of what you spend your time on, you're not busy. You've just chosen other things that have occupied that time. And so when you start to pursue your doctorate, I think the realization of what time is, because you need it, becomes so much more evident. So great stuff from all of you.
I always want to go back and smack my pre-PhD self of ever saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm so busy." I'm like, shut up.
Indeed, because people really believe that, and I'm sure in some way they are really busy. But it's how you choose. It's we all have the same amount of time when we wake up in the morning. It's just how we choose to spend it. So I don't know. I'm with you. So we have a few more questions. I think the Twitters definitely they are popping. So thank you to everyone who's listening, watching. This is really exciting. Martha Compton has another question for Jeff. I think this is for all of you too. But can you share your organizational structure and style for the things that you've done to make the essay doc work? Whether it's digital strategies, whether it's cloud strategies, whether it's apps. What have you used to organize the work that you're doing? So Jeff, this is for you to start, and then we'll go down the line.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, Zotero is by far. And I know some people use like EndNotes or RefWorks, something like that, but I use Zotero. It's a free open source. I don't know if it's open source, but it's a free software. And whenever I look something up on a database or a website or just an article in the Chronicle, even like a YouTube video, it will give me a little thing in my toolbar where I can just hit it, and it's going to capture all that information and data, and it's going to throw it into the citation manager, right? So then when I go to write my paper, I want to quote that, I hit the Zotero button, and it throws it all in there for you. When I'm done writing the paper, I hit the create bibliography section, and bam, there's a bibliography right there. Which I remember in my master's program thinking like, oh, I'm done writing my paper, I just need to do my works cited page. And like 3 hours later, I'm like, is it like 2 spaces after the period? I don't remember. And I never got it right. I always got points off of that. And now it like almost practically does it all for you. And so that's huge. But also as I find articles, I just use Dropbox. I know a lot of people use Mendeley, which I always call the Mendeley Bay, which I don't know. It just never really worked out for me. I just never needed it. I thought I had everything in Dropbox enough. Zotero a lot of times will capture the articles with that, and there's a new thing called there's a new thing where you can read and cite on your like iPad if you're using Zotero and the articles in there. And then I'm an iOS user, so I have a Mac, and I use the Preview app to read articles, and it has just the simple functionality of highlighting and underlining. If I'm looking for specific keywords, instead of reading the entire article, I go through and do keyword searches first to see if it even talks about what I'm looking for in there. So I do that before I even like bother skimming, and then. So that's it. So I don't have a ton of tools. So it's mainly just a Dropbox and Zotero, and then I use the Preview app just because, and it's free with the Macs.
Great, thank you, Josie.
I too am exploring some of the free online tools that are available. Dropbox is obviously a great option as far as organization. Mendeley is another option. But I'm going to admit that I know myself enough that there are some articles that I do need to print out and store, and I'm confident that I'm going to use those, beyond even my dissertation. And at first I felt really guilty about that, but I do try to be choosy. I try to read it before I actually print it and then ensure it's properly organized. But because some individuals are able to read and cite and highlight completely without printing, and I give props to those individuals, but it just wasn't working for me, and so I kind of had to release that paper printing guilt and just make sure that I'm organizing and really using those properly.
Thank you. Nikki.
I won't put any input in on software because I used EndNote for a while, but it wasn't working for me, and so I kind of made my own system. However, I will emphasize when you are to the draft stage of your whole document or even chapters, I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend obviously back them up in multiple places. Don't keep them all together. Put one on the cloud, whatever it is. But I would also encourage you to save every version with the date, because you may take out whole chunks and then start writing again, and sometimes it's nice to jump back a draft or two and pull that back in. And so I highly recommend. I have so many ridiculous copies of my dissertation because there are times I rewrote 2 chapters twice. And so being able to completely go back into old copies and pull it out was really handy, because I liked how I set it back there or whatever it is. And my all-time favorite app, if you do not have it, I think it's on Android as well, but I know it's on iPhone, is EasyBib. If you do not have EasyBib, get it. You scan the barcode of a book, it pops it up in either Chicago APA or MLA, and it is by far my favorite thing ever, because I'll be looking at a book, it looks really cool, I do it, and it like Jeff said, it takes care of all the work, it puts the periods where I want it, and it's so nice to have that to reference back when you say, oh, I should have got that book, and then go back and get it. So it's, my brother's a librarian, and he turned me onto that one, and I use it all the time.
Awesome.
Josie, the author Anne Lamont said stop feeling bad about printing and just donate money to a plant a tree charity, because it's hard to be a writer and not print. And so I have a file in my Dropbox of like things to be printed, because I know I'm going to be, I keep it in my bag, I know I'm going to be like stuck in traffic, or I'm going to be waiting at a doctor's appointment or something, and I need to like have something with me to read there. So I have that also. Well,
and my advisor wanted printed out copies of my drafts when we were going through the editing process. So I printed out my full-blown dissertation multiple times. My husband did as well. So what we started to do is we collected them. It became almost like we're either going to burn it in effigy or something. And we actually took our stacks of drafts to a stationery store, and they chopped them up and glued, and we have little notebooks to give to all of our friends at our thank you party now that we're done. So you can have fun with it.
That's so awesome.
That's
what a great idea. Something I want to contribute to this is, because I'm still new and wet behind the ears, half of my books I bought for my classes on Amazon, and the cool thing about Amazon is that if you read it in Kindle and you're highlighting, kindle.amazon.com creates a one-page citation list of all of the highlights from the book you read, and then you can cut and paste that into Evernote if you want to have it with you all the time, and it makes a great way to write papers to remember, for conversations in class, like some of the key things that you felt that you got out of it. And if you have an audiobook that you can use on a run, for example, because I've been an active runner this year, you can actually read a book, pause it, bookmark it, and then when you open up the audio version of that same book in Audible, it will read from the moment you stopped, and vice versa. So if I'm listening to a book and I pause it, it'll open up in the app to that spot. So I find it very useful if you're reading and needing that stuff for class. I found that very useful as well.
So Ed, one thing I didn't think about, I will a lot of times upload my PDFs to Kindle, and I'll have the Kindle's text to voice on 2 times speed, because I can retain that a lot faster than just reading it. Like the Kindle reads faster than I do, but I'll have the document up in front of me also, so I'm listening to it and I'm reading it and I'm highlighting and taking notes as it's like flying through. And I can get the articles or books so much faster, retain more, and then have a good set of notes with me while I do that.
Awesome. That's a good idea, actually. I like that. Well, we're almost at the end of our show. If you can, we've flown through almost an hour's worth of content, which is outstanding. And so I want to give each of you a chance to give some final thoughts on the conversation. Any advice that you have for anyone either in a program, thinking about programs, or almost finished with their dissertation and about to defend. Any advice from each of you to close the show today? So we'll start with Nikki.
I have the joy of hindsight to be able to look past this now, and so I truly want people to understand this is a temporary part of your life. that yes, we all will be students for the rest of our life and reading and so forth, but there is an end to this process. And as I always joked about, I can do anything for a couple of years, I can do anything for a couple of weeks, I can do, that you do, it does take some sacrifice, but there's an end to it. And since I've finished my dissertation, well, just in the past, I think 2 months, I think I've read 24 books just for fun. So have fun with it, but know that there is an end.
Thank you. Jeff?
And congrats, Nikki, on finishing. I will say, I'm not going to lie to you, it is hard. I don't want to like sugarcoat that. It's hard, but it is doable. And it's to say anything in life that's worth doing is going to be hard. The easy things don't pay off like the hard things do. So there's never a good time for it. So just take the plunge and do it. And the next 3 or 4 years of your life you're going to live anyway, so you might as well have a degree from it.
Awesome. And Josie?
I think one outcome that I didn't expect going to my doctoral program is as much work that I put on my papers is that there's been a lot of work that I've had to do personally and professionally as you go through the process of exploring what your dissertation topic will be, or just the voices that you hear in your head late at night working on a paper, but how much through that exploration process that you continue to grow as a person. And I'm only halfway through my program, so I know there'll be a few more iterations of that, but and to enjoy that process too, and that becoming stronger as a person, as a professional, to hopefully lead you to the topic that you feel the most connected with. So again, it just was a part of the process I didn't expect, but that's been really fulfilling for me to be part of.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today, and to my guests for sharing your knowledge, dropping wisdom on everyone. I appreciate it more than you know, and I'm again grateful for your time and energy. And Nikki, again, congratulations, Dr. Nikki Rudolph. I appreciate you joining us. And I hope that all of you got something out of today's conversation and helped you understand a little bit better the process of pursuing a doctorate while working in student affairs. Next week, we'll be back for another edition of Student Affairs Live. We'll be doing a very special show, a personal one for me actually, focusing on social media for social good. We're hoping to do some good by raising some funds for the folks in the Philippines. My family is from the Philippines, and after the devastation from the super typhoon that affected them last week, I wanted to do something. And so next week we will be having a very special show on social media for social good. I've reached out to colleagues of mine who will donate some time in the form of speaking engagements, consulting, and we're going to have an all-star list of folks up to have each of your institutions. If you've ever wanted to bring folks to campus, we're going to have some really great names up there and hopefully raise some good money for the folks in the Philippines. My parents' family is still there. My mom's family is still there, so definitely hit home. And so we're hoping to do some good next week. So hope you'll join us for a very special edition of Student Affairs Live. I appreciate the folks at M. Stone are allowing us to do that show. Until then, I hope you have a fantastic week. Stay connected on Twitter through #SALive, and we'll see you then. Take care.